Welcome to Monologues by Hassie, where I'm going to be dropping unsolicited brain dumps from the depths of my grey matter. I'll talk about life, money, society, and self-development, plus whatever else lies up there, whilst hopefully not getting cancelled in the process. One of my favorite internet memes, and maybe it's a Gen Z thing, but I'm not too sure if it's tied to a generation, is it's a skill issue. And you see this everywhere when something happens or somebody's unable to do something, and people will simply comment, it's a skill issue, highlighting that that person would have been able to achieve whatever they were trying to achieve had they just had the appropriate skills. So sometimes you'll see this used in a nonsensical way, like somebody's partner leaves them and they say, that's a skill issue because you couldn't retain them. And whilst it's not always going to be literally a skill issue, there is some usefulness in that whole concept that we can acquire the skills to deal with problems that we have. But I don't think we should let this stand in the way of achieving the things that we need to do. So recently, I had one of these situations where I was in the it's a skill issue mindset. So I needed to build a landing page for this application I'm working on, and I'm not somebody who typically does the beautiful front-end web design. It's just not been a part of my job, but it is something that I know that I do want to acquire the skills. And Initially, I tried to start building this landing page, and I realized it was going to take me far too long because whilst I do want to acquire the skill, I also have very real deadlines, and I want to get my digital products out there on the market in a reasonable amount of time because I realize I'm going to learn more by having something slightly imperfect out there and then iterating on that versus trying to achieve perfection from day one. Because what often happens is you just never actually end up releasing what you were going to release because you're constantly striving for this imaginary, this idealistic destination of perfection, and it simply does not exist. You need to get things out and then iterate on them. That is, for the most part, it's a very good approach to making progress and improving your skill over time. It's just that to get to that ideal state, you might get there on your 10th, your 100th, your 1000th piece of work that you're working on, whatever that be it digital products, be it essays you're writing, be it poems, it really doesn't matter. It is that process of continual iteration. And so I realized I have this deadline and I don't have the skill to buy a landing page. So one thing I was very proud of doing was realizing that in this situation, it is a skill issue, but I am going to try and outsource this landing page. And by outsource, what I did was I went and bought something called a boilerplate template for a landing page that I thought looked pretty good. For the lay people listening to this who aren't in the world of software engineering or web design or IT, what boilerplate is, it is almost like buying a meal kit. And imagine that you wanted to make butter chicken tonight. So you buy a meal kit, which already gives you all the chicken you need. It gives you the vegetables, it gives you the sauces. All you need to do is follow the instructions and cook it yourself. So there's still work you need to do yourself, but provided that you follow those instructions and that it's a good meal kit, you're going to get the product that you're after, which is the butter chicken that you want to have for dinner. So I bought this boilerplate landing page template under the impression that this is going to be the meal kit for me. And I'm actually rather proud of that decision because I basically, after kind of struggling with toying with trying to make a aesthetic landing page, not really knowing what components I needed to make something that was both visually appealing, that would have a strong call to action, that would bring somebody in, that was responsive so you can use it on different screens, I kind of just went and bought it. And I think that's a good decision because I said, I don't have the skill to do this today, but in the meantime, here's what I can do to overcome the fact that I do need a landing page for my application. And so fundamentally, I outsourced that skill to somebody else who is a much better designer. Now, here's the irony with this whole story. That landing page template, the boilerplate that I bought, was not the right product for me. It ended up requiring so much more configuration than I originally expected, and sometimes when you're buying these pre-made boilerplates off the marketplace, you are getting a product that is very generic. It is made to satisfy 1,001 use cases, and it just is very difficult to tailor it to what you need. So I realized within 24 hours of kind of having bought that template and playing around with it, I realized you need to stop using this. And ironically, I actually did deal with the skill issue under the time pressure of needing to get a landing page out and produced quite a nice looking landing page. And I had a few of my friends who were software engineers review it, and they were like, wow, that looks really good. And the question was, how long did you spend working on this? And it didn't take me more than 2.5 business days from struggling with my first original landing page to making the decision to outsource it because I realized I had a skill issue, to then actually acquiring some basic skills to go ahead and build that. But it was because I did it in a very time-bound pressure. But the moral of the story isn't that you need to go and acquire the skills. It's that I did make the correct decision. I made the decision to deal with some of my own inadequacies by outsourcing that work to someone who was, at least in my head, a better person to produce that landing page. So of course, I wasn't actually dealing with the person who created it. I was dealing with their digital product. So there are layers of abstractions, and that's probably one of the reasons it didn't work out. But my heart was in the right place and my head was in the right place. The real skill issue I had was actually determining what product was suitable for my needs. So I did a very bad job of that. But I think identifying that you have deficiencies and sometimes the solution is not to rely on yourself is a very important thing. So as much as there is this kind of meme out there that, hey, it's a skill issue and you can figure out all your problems by yourself, that isn't always going to be the case. And I'm happy I made that decision, even though it didn't quite work out, because I know I'm going to have to do that in the future. There is no human way that for all of the things that I want to achieve and that what you want to achieve, that you are going to do things completely independently. One of my biggest takeaways from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is that when we're in our highest states of productivity and creativity and effectiveness, we exist in a state of interdependency between us and other people. So there are all these relationships and we're leveraging each other's skills to go do amazing things. And it is important for me to realize that I will eventually need to get out of the mindset that I can do everything myself, that I can acquire all the skills that I need to do the things that I want. It is simply probably not going to be the case, because I can still acquire the skills, but maybe I won't acquire them in time to make a meaningful impact for the project I'm working on. Because there are things like time limits, there are time bounds, there are deadlines. And in that case, it is important to be interdependent and to say, I have a skill issue, but that person doesn't, or that product will help me deal with my skill issue. And maybe that's the option that I want to choose today, whilst in the background, if it's really important to me, I can still work on developing those skills. So have a think about where my prompt for those of you listening to this today is, where have you had a skill issue that's actually stopped you from doing something? And is there a very cheap way for you to, maybe it's not cheap, but is there a way for you to go and remedy that skill issue, not by learning it yourself, but by either buying a product, by hiring a service, or working with somebody else? And will that solve your problem? And in my case, my experiment of buying a landing page website boilerplate, as I described, the kind of meal kit equivalent of building your own website, I spent about $40 Australian on that, which was, in the grand scheme of things, a very cheap experiment. Even though I abandoned it less than 24 hours later, it was the right train of thinking to be in. That I needed to get this out today, and that my skills weren't going to be up to scratch by the deadline that I had, so I looked elsewhere, rather than saying, this isn't going to get done because I don't have the skills. So really give yourself that thought about, where are you letting the whole meme of it's a skill issue hold you back? Because it shouldn't. There is a interdependent way where we can rely on other people, either directly through their products or through their digitized services, to achieve the things that we need to do. So I'll leave this episode there, and to everyone listening, I'm wishing you great success on all your endeavors. You've just made it through another episode of Monologues by Hassie. It brings me great pleasure to know that you made it to the end. To listen to more episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit monologuesbyhassie.com. Thanks for swinging by.